What is going on, YouTube people? Today we're going to talk a little allocations and Journey together. It seems like a lot of the rip and shippers and shops and everyone's getting their or beginning to get their allocation numbers for Journey together. And long story short, they don't seem great. And I have no direct access to distribution. I'm just going off of what everyone else is saying, but there is a lot of people saying it. So, it seems like that's going to be the case. I know Danny Phantom did a video on this late last night talking about his numbers. I've heard from other LC or LGSs complaining about theirs, and basically a lot of background chatter about this in the industry. And it it seems like a combination of they underestimated demand, and I don't think they had enough time to spin it up for Journey together because things have obviously gone haywire the last couple of months, and I imagine this was already in the print queue. People are saying it's short printed. Same thing with Prismatic Evolutions, and I kind of touched on a little bit of this in yesterday's video. I don't think it's actually air quote short printed. When I hear the term, maybe this is just me, when I hear the term short printed, that makes me think they printed it way less of it than like Surging Sparks, or way less of it as Stellar Crown or something like that. I don't think that's the case. I think printing stayed about the same, but demand has escalated significantly. And it's demand from everywhere. It's not just consumer demand. Now, that's obviously where it starts. Me and you want to buy our boxes. Some people want to rip them. Some people want to stash them. Some people, want to do whatever with them. Some people want to collect the box. That demand has obviously increased, but because demand from us has increased, now everyone that sells it wants the product. You have Best Buy selling booster boxes at full MSRP. You have Books A Million. You have all sorts of random places that would carry some ancillary products here and there on occasion, and some that never would, that now are all of a sudden selling booster boxes. GameStop is selling booster boxes hand over fist at full MSRP. That would never happen before because the demand would never be there at full MSRP for the boxes. But now that they can make a boatload of money in it, they're getting priority before the shops. And this is ultimately the problem. The way the distribution channels work, and this is the same in sports cards and, TCG, the more you spend, the more you get. It's a pay to play game, essentially. Now, who's going to spend more? Danny Phantom or Best Buy? Guess what? Best Buy outspends all of them. Target outspends all of them. Retail chains are going to get first dibs on everything. Why? Because they buy a crap ton of stuff. So if all of a sudden Target, Best Buy, whoever, GameStop comes walking down the street, knocks on the door of old Mr. Distributor or Pokemon Center directly and goes, "Hey, we want some of those Journey Together boxes." Of course they're going to keep them happy because they buy so much other product. And they take a lot of the ancillary stuff that an LGS might not necessarily want because they want it on the shelf or whatever. So they're out buying everybody, and it's a pay-to-play game, so they get first crack at whatever they want. And now, all of a sudden, they want booster boxes, or they want ETBs, or booster box, whatever. They want it all. They want as much as they can get their hands on because people are fighting in the streets for it, and there's probably good profit margin on it, especially if you're charging full MSRP. Imagine what Target or Best Buy spends on a booster box, or GameStop if they're selling booster boxes. They're probably getting it as cheap as you could possibly get it because of the amount that they spend. So now let's just say they're getting it for $90. It may even be cheaper. But let's say they're getting it for $90 a box. And they're selling it for $160 something. And this is Target and Best Buy. Think of how many pallets of booster boxes they could buy if they wanted to. And they're just turning that over, basically $50 a pop, because they have, scaled distribution to ship these things out. Their costs are probably way less to do it because it's built into all their other stuff that they already have. It's just a money printing machine for them. So all of a sudden, they go to the front of the line and push all the LGSs out of the way. And then in addition to that, on the LGS level, you now have people that didn't typically buy Pokemon, but spent a lot of money at distribution on sports cards, Magic, non-sport, whatever, that maybe never used to buy a lot of Pokemon. Now all of a sudden they're increasing their order. Well, if they're spending millions of dollars a year in sports cards and other product, and now all of a sudden they want some Pokemon, Distro's going to throw them a couple cases to keep them happy. So ultimately, yes, could Pokemon print more? Should they print more? Absolutely, clearly they need to. But I honestly think a lot of this is coming from the broken system of distribution and the pay-to-play like attitude that they take. It's the system that they set up. Most of the time it works pretty okay, but when you get in situations like this, it disrupts the entire supply chain. And then, because of that, all of a sudden it creates FOMO for everything, which drives up the price, and now everything's instantly selling out. And meanwhile, I don't know if this was their master plan or not, but the people at the Pokemon Company are sitting there going, guys, girls, members of the committee, we did it. We got them. We got them. Remember when they would barely buy a booster box for $100 and they would sit on our website for like months, years even? Look at Vivid Voltage, just selling out years after release, and we'd have to sit on all that product. Now they're fighting in the streets to pay us full MSRP. This is great. Now, you might say they don't directly benefit from, selling it a Distro for whatever they sell it for, and then Distro selling it to the shops for $80, and then the shops selling it for $160. They're leaving a lot of money on the table, and that very well may be true, but they got everybody FOMOing all over their product, and they're probably making it up in other places. And you have to be careful. There is a flip side to this. Look what Wizards of the Coast did during the peak pandemic. They printed everything to the moon and back again and almost killed everything completely. It's a tough needle to thread on, do we print enough? How do we print just the right amount where collectors / investors are satisfied? And then, as Rudy likes to say, the game piece army is also satisfied. It felt like we had good balance prior to this. Sets would come out, they would all sell, boxes would go for $90 to $100, and then increase. If anything, it was probably skewed too far the other direction. Booster boxes probably shouldn't have been selling for $90. It basically gave essentially zero profit margin on everything, or next to zero. You make a little tiny bit, $5-10 a box if you were lucky after everything. But on the flip side, $200 for a box of Journey Together seems like madness to me. Anyway, even full MSRP honestly feels like madness to me. It feels like it should settle in somewhere around 120, 125, 130. Somewhere in there seems a little fair for everybody. The shop gets to make a little bit of profit. You're not absolutely bending the customer over on the other side. Everyone can get what they want to get. It plays out its natural course. The players get it. The collectors get it. The evil investors get to buy it at a reasonable price and stash it in a closet for 6 years. And then eventually, time and nature will do its thing and values will slowly tick up over time. We're basically fast forwarding all that and going right to the very end. And it's just broken everything. Collectors are pissed off. People that just want to rip product are pissed off. People that want to play the game are pissed off. Investors are pissed off because boxes are $250 out the gate. They're used to buying at 100, maybe 80, maybe 90, and willing to sit on it for a few years for it to get to 200, and now it's just starting at 200. And God knows what it's going to take to double from there. I still think a lot of this is built-in FOMO to start off. This is going to be a fascinating case study on what happens after we get past release day and this artificial chokehold on product, and the FOMO lightens up a little bit, especially with Black and White coming immediately after this and Team Rocket coming immediately after this, that are going to be very popular sets, and Prismatic Evolutions reprints, Surging Sparks reprints. People only have so much money to go in so many different directions. You know, they're going to be fighting in the aisles for eggs pretty soon instead of 151 blooming water boxes. And what happens to Journey Together when all these other banger products come out? I don't know that it's got the heat to maintain with that other stuff. You know, do prices slowly come back down on it? Because it can't hang with that other stuff, and there's just not enough money to go around into the pool at that given time. And I assume they're going to reprint the hell out of this too. It feels like all the reprint energy is going to be focused on the newer products, and the older ones are going to get left behind. I don't know that for sure, because it feels like they need to reprint everything right now. But I think I get it. We could blame Pokemon for not printing enough. I'm sure their runway lead for these products is a lot longer than we all realize in terms of prepping the printers, getting them out, figuring out how many you're going to run of each product. I'm sure that's a much longer process than any of us want to admit. But I think a big part of this that causes all this chaos is the various distribution methods and how they reward those. You're rewarded for spending the most money. You're not rewarded for being a Pokemon shop or, you know, an LGS that runs great events and has fostered a great community or whatever. Because you didn't spend enough money, you get pushed to the side to get jumped for target. And it's a rough sandwich for people to swallow. I get it. You know, that's a real turd burger right there. And I don't know how it gets fixed in its current model. Then you throw in the mix of rip and shippers and, you know, all the other stuff. And a lot of this is why, you know, in the sports card side of the world, where a majority of my content comes from, you know, Fanatics came in and said, why are we leaving all this money on the table with distribution? Because then there's a side of it where, you know, does distribution play games? You know, they get the restock, air quote, restock, air quote, the pallets they've been holding in the back, and they jack the price up on the restocks to closer to market, and then they make even more money on it. What Fanatics did, they came in, they bought Topps, and Fanatics has their own distribution networks because they're Fanatics, and they said, you know what, Southern Hobby, we don't really need you anymore. We'll just do this all ourselves. And then they raise the prices up. So instead of Pokemon Center selling the boxes to Southern Hobby for, I don't know, let's just call it 60. I have no idea what they sell them for. I'm just making up numbers. Selling it to Southern Hobby for 60, Southern Hobby selling it to shops for 80, and then the shop selling it to us for, let's just call it 120. Fanatics would have come in and said, okay, shops, you just buy from us for 100. And then they keep all that extra money in between. But they already had the distribution network built out. That's the key thing. Pokemon Center doesn't have that. But I think the distribution network is, I don't want to say they're causing problems. It's just the system that they've built up does not work when this type of stuff goes on, because the big box retailers jump to the front of the line. And that has massive downward implications on everything else. That's just my thoughts on it from an outsider, but curious for your feedback, thoughts and comments down below. Catch you boys and girls on the next one. Peace.